Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater. I am your chairperson this afternoon. I am joined via Zoom by Mr. Jerry Arnell, and here to my left, Mr. Ethan Robson as panel members. From the assessment department, we have Ms. Amanda Kilbourne, and our administrative personnel today is Ms. Phoebe Graywood. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. Statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with the applicant following swearing in. You will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Today, we will be hearing items 6 through 11 and item number 13 on the docket. Ms. Graywood, would you please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony?
Mr. Dennell, I'll just put you in the meeting room for now, and then we'll bring you back for your item.
Okay.
Madam Kilbourne, can you state your full name?
Amanda Kilbourne.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Let us cast for this time. Please state your full name.
Sarah Cates.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may
Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Kilbourne and Ms. Cates. Our first property is item number 6, 1325 Arlington Street. And Ms. Kilbourne, whenever you are ready.
Okay. Okay, so this property is 1325 Arlington Street. The roll number is 14002713000. It's located in the Dufferin neighborhood in Market Region 4. It is a 2-story row house with 4 units built in 1978. It's 3,840 square feet with 4 bathrooms and no basement. It's surface foundation. The lot size is 7,356 square feet, and there's a bus, corner, and traffic influence. The comparable properties are 407 Sherbrooke Street, 678 Wellington Avenue, 188 Quelch Street, and 102 Lusted Avenue. They are all two-story row houses in the same market region as the subject property. They all have 4 units, except 102 Lusted has 3 units. The square footages range from 3,366 square feet to 3,840 square feet. 407 Sherbrooke has a finished basement, and the rest of the comparables do not. 407 and 678, 407 Sherbrooke and 678 Wellington have 2 bathrooms per unit, and 188 Quelch and 102 Lusted have 1. The lot sizes range from 4,311 to 9,818 square feet. There's a bus commercial traffic influence for 407 Sherbrooke. There's a commercial community rec building corner and traffic influence for 678 Wellington. There's a corner and school influence for 188 Quelch. And there's a school influence for 102 Lusted. As these are row houses, I feel average price per unit seems most applicable, and their average price ranges from $195,800 down to $80,000 per unit. 407 Sherbrooke is a newer build and superior to the subject and should be at the high end. And then 102 Lusted is significantly older and should be at the lower end. So I feel that based on these sales, the subject property is $467,000 or $116 average price per unit, and I feel that this value should be maintained.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, did you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. So for the overall approach used, the assessment department would value properties up to 4 units on direct comparison, and then 5 units are over on income. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And would you agree that direct comparison is the most accurate when you have a high number of comparable sales to draw on, such as for like single family homes?
Yeah, I believe that all the residential properties that we use direct comparison. So anything that's multifamily or apartment or larger complexes are our income approach, and these ones are direct comparison approach.
Okay. So the subject property owned by Manitoba Housing would be social housing, is that correct?
I believe it is. Yeah, it's owned by Manitoba Housing.
And are any of your comparable social housing, or would they all be considered market properties that generate income?
Yeah, they're market properties that is sold on MLS.
So then the sale prices of those comps would be based on the income stream that the purchaser would expect to achieve, correct?
I believe so, yes. But I don't have their income information with me, so I don't know what their rents are. I don't know any of that information.
Yeah, that's fair. So if the subject property has never operated for profit, then would that not add additional risk, given that the purchaser doesn't have certainty as to what income stream they're purchasing as compared to the comps?
It's possible, but I still believe that direct comparison and sales is how we would find a value for this property. And it's at the mid-range, so it's lower than the higher valued ones that are built newer or maybe would be in better shape than that one, and then higher than the ones that were built in the early 1900s or the late 1800s. So I believe that being in the middle range of these sales is a reasonable place to be.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that you haven't contemplated the risk that social housing would bring, though you're just kind of placing it mid-range? Is that?
I'm placing it mid-range based on the sales that I have.
Okay. And would you agree that location is one of the most important determinants of value for real estate?
Yeah, I feel that location for all of these properties are in the core area, in the same market region area, and are all in a less desirable area. So I think that they are all comparable in location.
Okay, so you don't agree that comparable 4 in North Point Douglas would be the closest match in terms of location?
I think that would actually probably be in a worse location, but they're all in relatively comparable locations. I didn't pick comparables in other regions of the city. I used market region 4 in the core of the city.
Yeah, but regions are fairly broad. Okay, I'll move on. So comparable one at Sherbrooke is fairly new, so the finishes and features would be a lot more modern than the subject, correct?
Yeah, I stated that in my presentation.
Okay, just clarifying. So comparable one and two also have 4 half baths where the subject does not, so would having property with more features be more desirable for tenants and achieve higher rents?
Yes, and they are at the higher end and the subject property is lower than them.
That would conclude my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Arnett, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I was just wondering about comparable 4. Like it's quite a bit older than the other 3. Is it fair to use that one or?
I had to use row houses and there aren't a ton of row houses to use comparables. So I picked that one to show at the very low end, and houses that are that age are still selling for 80-ish thousand per unit. So having the subject property at 116 per unit is more than reasonable.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Robson?
In terms of the service foundation on the subject property in comparison to the comparables, would you put much weight on it as it has the?
I think that having surface foundation definitely brings the value down. It would be for this property roughly like 60-ish thousand for the whole complex or the whole building. Maybe like 15-ish thousand per unit lower to have no basement.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, I did take that into consideration.
No further questions. Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Kilbourne, I'm just wondering, did you have any Manitoba housing properties to compare as opposed?
No, there were no ones that were Manitoba housing, unfortunately.
Okay.
Not in this reference period anyways.
All right. I'm assuming this was model driven.
I'm sorry,
I'm assuming your brief is model driven.
is what? I'm sorry, I can't hear. Let me turn my. I apologize. Can you repeat that, please?
I'm assuming your brief is model driven.
Yes, sorry, I didn't hear that.
And do you have any idea when this property was last inspected?
For this property, I can just take a look quickly. I don't know if this one was ever. I don't have any record of it ever being inspected.
Okay, so you yourself.
No, I did not do an inspection. No.
All right. Okay, I thank you. That's all my questions. Ms. Cates, if you would like to proceed.
Okay. So if you turn to page 2, I have a summary of some of the pertinent facts of the property, as well as our requested assessment of $343,000. If you turn to page 6, I have some maps to get a better sense of the location. So we have an aerial map and then as well a Google map view. And on page 7, I've included some exterior photos of the property. So I will note that the first photo is a bit older, but that was just because the trees on the most current view were kind of blocking the property, but you know, it's the same finishes. So I just included that to get a better view. Those photos go to page 8. On page 9, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on the east side of Arlington Street at its intersection with Stella Avenue, and it is in the Dufferin neighborhood. Now, I would suggest that this is one of the more challenging areas of the city, and it's not necessarily comparable to every single neighborhood in the inner city market region, as Winnipeg is a fairly block by block city. Different areas can have different feels to them. So the property is a 2-story fourplex built in 1978. We have 4 units. They are 2 at 864 square feet and 2 at 1065 square feet. So at the time of the report, I was presuming them to be two bedrooms and 2 3-bedrooms. And since then I was able to confirm that that is in fact the suite mix. And there is some surface parking located off the back lane, as you could see in the exterior photos. So if you go to page 14, we have our overview for the valuation. So I've done an income approach for this property that's consistent with how we would value other multi-unit residential properties and other social housing properties. So for consistency, we're doing the same approach. And I would suggest that for direct comparison, as I was trying to bring that in questioning, it is more accurate when you have a higher volume of sales. And as well with direct comparison, when those purchasers were purchasing those properties, the sales is based on the income they could expect to achieve. So this property, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what income they could actually achieve because these don't operate for profit and they have no history of operating at a profit. So in terms of the rent that we've applied, the property is rent geared to income, meaning people pay what they can. So the rents are not at market. So what I've done is I've looked to CMHC townhouse rents and I use those for the valuation. Now with CMHC, they just provide the averages. They don't provide the range that goes into that average. So in order to capture the differences between social housing and the market apartments that CMHC uses, I've taken a factor of 75%, which is consistent with how we would do our valuations. So the rent applied would be $1,087 per unit per month. For vacancy, these properties also don't achieve market vacancy. So again, we've looked to CMHC. The data was a bit more scattered for the vacancy, but I've applied a rate of 5% based on the overall ranges that I was seeing with that data. And for expenses, we know that market apartments of this age group typically would run expenses in the high 40% to mid 50% range of effective gross income. So we've applied a rent on the higher end of the spectrum at 55%. The reason for applying at the higher end of the range is because typically lower quality properties would have to include more things in the rent in order to be desirable for tenants, such as utilities. So that would drive the expenses up higher. Now, if you turn to page 15, we have some discussion surrounding how we do cap rates for social housing properties. So the way in which we derive our social housing cap rates is we start at a market cap rate and then we do adjustments for risk factors. And that's suggested by Richard Bolton, who wrote Valuation and Market Studies for Affordable Housing for the Appraisal Institute. Now, given that we've done different approaches and the cap rate itself isn't necessarily under dispute, I won't go into a lengthy presentation on our cap rate study, but it is provided as evidence if you wanted more information on how we do the base cap rate portion. But I just wanted to spend a couple minutes to talk about the specific social housing features, and that'll apply for the next couple of properties as well. So in terms of risk factors, they could be divided into more specifics as Richard Bolton discusses, but overall they fit into 4 broad categories, which is low income tenancy, low cost or low quality construction, neighborhood, as well as advanced age. So if this property we have 3 of those features, I would suggest the only one we don't have would be advanced age. So in terms of low income tenancy, if you turn to page 17, there's more discussion on that. But just to summarize, the reason that low income tenancy creates the issue is because of its link to deferred maintenance. So since these properties do not earn enough revenue to cover their expenses, they rely on funding to keep operating. But what gets neglected is those repair and maintenance items and some of those preventative matters. So what happens is issues get put off to a later date, and then issues will grow in severity as well as number of issues. So when we're looking at this property and the ones to follow that are built in the 70s, you have all of that time of maintenance issues being put off. That creates an issue where at a certain point they have to look at the property and either decide to make a big capital investment to keep it going or to potentially tear it down and build something different. So if you go to page 19, I have an overview of the different factors that we're looking at. So from our base cap rate of 5.5, taking into account the type of construction, the social housing specific factors, as well as the location, I've come to a cap rate of 6.50%. So when you look at what the brokers say for investment grade properties, they're overwhelmingly suggesting 5 to 6 or 5 to 5.75. So we're looking at something that's not operating as a market property. Something above that range does make sense. And on page 20, you'll see I've broken the requested assessment down by a per unit amount as well. So if we wanted to reconcile this approach with the assessor's direct comparison, this property is social housing. It should be on the lower end of what the comp suggest. I'm coming in a bit higher at 85,799 per unit. And I think that makes sense when looking at the overall picture of the comps. So on page 21, I have the spreadsheet just showing how all of these numbers fit together. So we have an NOI of $22,308. And with the 6.5% cap rate, that gives us a value of $343,000. The appendix starts on page 23. And what I provided some rent comps. Granted, I think these are both superior to the subject, but it puts into perspective that the rents that we're using make sense when you have new developments renting at $1,200, $1,300 roughly per unit, going to about $1,000 a month for the property that we're looking at, kind of fits into place there. And then page 25, 26, I included the CMHC data for reference, and then just some other text surrounding social housing starting on page 27. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kilborn, questions?
I don't really have questions. I have a couple of comments, but I can save that for the end, I guess.
Sure, so you would like a summation?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, questions for Ms. Gates?
No, I don't have any questions, thanks.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Just have a couple of quick ones. You stated at the beginning of your presentation that this area you considered the most challenging in the city.
I would say one of the most for
Or
sure.
just one of them. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said the most.
No, I would say one of the most for sure.
Okay. I'm assuming you did not inspect the property.
I didn't have the opportunity to inspect, so my comments around condition and kind of deferred maintenance was based on exterior photos and what we know about social housing properties.
Okay. I thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kilborn, would you like to go ahead with the summation?
Sure. So I understand what she's coming from by using the income approach. That's not how we value these properties, so I use the direct comparison approach. I guess I just feel that the percentages that were used seem high in my opinion. I know that she gave reasons for it, but I do feel like the 55% is high. I feel that the 6.5% cap rate is higher too, and that may be more of a 6%. Just based on what I saw in the Collier's report. And then the vacancy rate, 5%, also seems high since the average is for 2023 was 1.8. It could be higher, but 5 just seems like a bit higher for a vacancy rate. So I just feel that even if using the income approach, the value that was determined is on the lower end based on those higher percentages. And I do feel that the comparable sales that I used would also have the same issues that were mentioned with deferred maintenance and having lower or like lower income type tenants in those properties as well. So they would also have those issues to deal with. So I do feel that the comparables I used are reasonable, and that being in the mid-range of those at the 106 or the 467 or the 116 per unit is a reasonable value and should be maintained. That's all.
Right. I thank you. Do you wish for a submission?
Yeah, I'll just end with a comment. So Everything that I provided is supported by market evidence. I provided the CMHC tables in the appendix, which shows where I got the rents and vacancy rate. So I don't know if there's a misunderstanding there, but everything is supported by market.
I guess just in what we use is the 45 to 50% range. I feel that 55% for the expenses seems a little high. 50% I could see more being reasonable. But again, I'm going with the direct comparison approach anyway, so I don't need to really argue with you. You have provided lots of information. I do appreciate that. So I just feel that this direct comparison approach does show that the value is in the mid-range of these sales, which is, to me, in my opinion, reasonable.
Okay, yeah, let's just leave it there.
All right.
Sure.
Okay, I thank you both for that. Sorry, panel, did you have any questions in regards to what was stated there at the end?
I don't, thanks.
No.
I do not.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to item number 7. Which is 525A Pritchard Avenue.
Okay, so this is 525A Pritchard Avenue. The roll number is 140208161100. The property is located in Market Region 4. It's a two-story row house with 4 units built in 1977. It's 3,384 square feet. It has 4 bathrooms and an unfinished basement. The lot size is 7,096 square feet, and there's a corner influence. The comparables I used are the same as before: 407 Sherbrooke Street, 678 Wellington Avenue, 180 Quelch Street, and 102 Lusted. They're all 2-story row houses in the same region as the subject. Their square footages range from 3,366 to 3,840 square feet. And the lot sizes range from 4,311 to 9,818. Oh, sorry. And the 407 Sherbrooke and 678 Wellington have 2 bathrooms per unit, and 188 Quelch has, and 102 Lusted has 1. And the influences for 407 Sherbrooke, there's the bus, commercial, and heavy traffic. 678 Wellington has the commercial, community rec, building, corner, and traffic influence. There's a corner and school influence for 188 Quelch, and 102 Lusted has a school influence. So I believe that I made a recommendation to lower 2025's value to 496, which is 124 average price per unit. And I believe that this value should be maintained as it's in the mid-range.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cates, are you willing to accept the recommendation from the city?
No, thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to proceed with questions for Ms. Kilborn, or were you finished, Ms. Kilborn?
Yes, I'm finished.
All right, thank you. If you would like to proceed with questions.
I don't have any new questions, but given that it's the same comps and the same type of subject property, I would just ask that my previous questions be carried forward.
So because we are on camera and each item is treated individually, I'm going to ask if you can repeat questions, please.
All of them?
Well, it's up to you, but thank you.
You know what, I'm okay. I think the points have been made. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Arnell.
No questions, thanks.
Question.
I'm just gonna ask my questions I previously asked Ms. Kilborn. This is model driven,
Yes.
and any notes on what was inspected last?
I can check. I don't believe we've done for any of these, but I can quickly. Sorry, just 1 second. Oh, actually, there was an inspection back in 2014, so 10 years ago. There was some work done to the property, like new siding, windows, some flooring, some drywall, that type of stuff. So that was roughly 10 years ago. Not by me. I've never inspected.
All right, I thank you. Ms. Bates, if you would like to proceed.
Okay. So if you turn to page 2, we have our requested assessment of $308,000. On page 6, we have our site maps, so the aerial overview and the Google map view. And on page 7, we have some exterior photos. I would suggest this one is in worse condition than the prior. If you take a look at like what you're seeing with the roof on page 7, as well as the windows, these are about as current as we could get from Street View. They're from 2024, I believe. And then there's some photos of the back of the property as well. On page 9, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Pritchard Avenue at the northeast corner of its intersection with Andrew Street. It is in the William White neighborhood of the inner city market region. Again, it's a 2-story fourplex built in 1977, though the units at this property are a bit smaller. There are 2 at 796 square feet and 2 at 896. So based on the sizes, I did up the valuation as if they were all 2-bedroom units. And there is some surface parking located off the back lane. So if you turn to page 14, again, we have the overview of the income approach. So all supported by market, doing a similar methodology with the rents, taking an 80% average of the CMHC, given that we're using the 2-bedroom category. So that would give a rent of $977 per unit per month. 5% based on CMHC townhouse vacancy. So CMHC does separate their data into apartment and townhouse. So that's where that is coming from. And then expense allowance at 55%, which is what you'd even expect in a market apartment. This is based on our experience at our office with looking at different apartment valuations. So in terms of the cap rate, my previous comments would carry over about the specifics of cap rate for social housing. I won't present on that again, but it starts on page 15 and goes through page 17 and 18 as well. So for this property on page 19, we have the overview of the cap rate for the subject. So starting at 5.5% range, looking at low quality construction, low income tenancy, I would suggest inferior condition for this one, as well as neighborhood. 6.5% makes sense. Keeping in mind, even if the market reports are suggesting a top end of 6%, that's for investment grade properties, which this one is not. So having premiums that make it higher than investment grade does make sense. So if you turn to page 20, we have our requested value, and that works out to about $77,000 per suite. That jives with the previous one where it's larger units as well. This one appears to be in a worse condition state from that exterior photos. On page 21, we have our spreadsheet, which fits it all together. So we have an NOI of $20,044 with a 6.5% cap rate, gives a value of $308,000. The appendix starts on page 23, and it's the same content in terms of rent comps and other data pertaining to the valuation here. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kilburn, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell?
No, just a comment. So everything is based on the same numbers as your first presentation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, I have no questions then.
Just looking at the photos, I might have missed it, did you say they're recent photos as the?
Yeah, they're recent. They're street view as of 2024.
Okay.
So it just is about as recent as we could get for these.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
And my question was asked and answered. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
My summation is the same as my summation for the previous property. Should I say it or can I just?
No, I would say it.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm just, I just feel that these, we use direct comparison for these properties. We don't get any type of income expense mailers from these properties. We don't use income approach for these specific properties. I understand where the appellant is coming from, but I feel that because I have sales of properties that are two-story row houses in the same region as the subject, that these sales are reflective of what what properties like the subject property goes for, and it's in the mid to lower range, and that value should be maintained.
Ms. Case?
I would suggest that the income approach is more accurate. It's able to get down on a site-specific basis a lot easier. The direct comparison approach is only as good as the amount of sales you have and the adjustments you're able to make. And I would just reiterate that these properties don't operate at a profit. An investor purchasing it does not know what income stream they're using. So even the rent that we're suggesting, there's a big jump between what they currently achieve and those higher rents, and the risk needs to be taken into account for properties like these. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is number 8, 483 Dufferin Avenue. Ms. Kilburn, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so for 483 Dufferin Avenue, the roll number is 1400-2063-500. This property is located in the Dufferin neighborhood. It's a 2-story row house with 4 units built in 1979. It's 3,840 square feet. It has 4 bedrooms. The lot size is 7,352 square feet. There's a bus, commercial, and traffic influence. And the comparable properties are, again, 407 Sherbrooke Street, 678 Wellington Avenue, 188 Quelch Street, and 102 Lusted Avenue. They are also all 2-story row houses in the same region as the subject property. They all have 4 units, except for 102 Lusted has 3, and the square footage ranges from 3,366 to 3,840 square feet. 407 Sherbrooke has finished basement, and the rest of the comparables do not. 407 Sherbrooke and 678 Wellington has 2 bathrooms per unit, and 188 Quelch and 102 Lusted has 1. The lot sizes range from 3,919 to 9,818. There's a bus, commercial, and traffic influence for 407 Sherbrooke. There's a commercial community rec building, corner, and traffic influence for 678 Wellington. There's a corner and school influence for 188 Quelch, and 102 Lusted has a school influence. The average price per unit of these properties range from 190,800 down to 80,333. And I made a recommendation to lower 483 Dufferin to 531 or 132, roughly 132 average price per unit. And I feel that value should be maintained.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you say about the recommendation?
I'd like to proceed. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Ms. Kilburn, you're finished with your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Kilburn?
I have no additional questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Arnell.
No questions at this time.
No questions.
Kilburn, I just have one question in regards to your comparables.
Yes.
Because you've used the same 4 for these 3 properties.
Mhm.
Do you have any information at all about the condition of these properties? Do you have the agent's listings on them?
Yes, there's listings for all of them. 407 Sherbrooke did not have any interior pictures, but it's a relatively new build, so I'm assuming it's in pretty decent condition. 678 Wellington had an expired listing, and it showed that there was maybe the kitchen had been done at some point at some time. I don't know. It was looked like there had been some work done within, I don't know, a few years or so. 188 Quelch, there's no interior pictures. And that property has actually been torn down since the sale. And 102 Lusted was a dated home. I mean, it was built in 1882, so there has been upgrades since the build of it, but it was definitely a dated property.
And were there photos for that property?
For Lusted, yes, there was.
And did you see those photos?
I saw them. I mean, it looked dated, but it wasn't falling apart. But I mean, it was definitely dated, not an 1882 house, but not anything with any type of major renovations or anything. The kitchens look pretty old. The bathrooms look pretty dated.
Was there damage that you could see to any of these properties?
I didn't see no, not damage, but just, I mean, Lusted would be dated. Quelch, I would assume, was dated. I didn't see the interior, but the exterior looked kind of dated. Wellington and Sherbrooke would have been Sherbrooke would be probably in good condition. I didn't see the interior. Wellington was in decent shape, but it was also built in 1971, so not in the early 1900s or late 1800s.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to proceed.
Okay. So if you turn to page 2, we have our requested assessment of $343,000. On page 6, we have our property maps. And then on page 7, some exterior photographs. On page 8, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on the north side of Dufferin Avenue, west of its intersection with Power Street. And it is in the Dufferin neighborhood, similar to the first property we dealt with on Arlington. It was built in 1979, and there are 4 units, 2 that are 2 bedrooms and 2 that are 3 bedrooms, and they are 864 square feet and 1,065 square feet. And there is some surface parking off the back lane, as you can see from the photos. So on page 13, we have the overview of our income approach. So similar approach to the other 2 properties, taking 75% of the CMHC rent averages, 5% vacancy, and a 55% expense ratio. I would echo the same comments for the cap rates. Again, social housing property, Manitoba Housing. So all the previous comments would carry through. So that discussion starts on page 14. If you go to page 18, we have the overview of the cap rate factors. So again, quality of construction, low income tenancy, condition, location. So we go from a 5.5 to a 6.5%, and our adjustments are informed by Appraisal Institute text and prior orders on the subject. And then on page 19, we have our value request. So that works out to about $85,799 per unit. On page 20, we have our valuation spreadsheet. So we have a net operating income of $22,308 with a 6.5% cap rate, gives us our value of $343,000. And the appendix starts on page 22. And again, it's the rent comps, CMHC rent information, and just some other text on social housing. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Kilbourne, questions?
No questions.
Thank you. And Mr. Arnell?
No questions.
Yeah, so I don't have any questions.
And I also have questions. Do either of you, would you like to have a summation? Ms. Kilburn, or wrap things up on these 3 properties?
Sure. In summation, I do feel that the direct comparison approach is how we value these properties, and that should take that it should be taken into consideration. I do understand the income approach. in my opinion, I feel that the percentages are slightly high, but I mean, I'm not gonna to argue that. I know that there's lots of information that the appellant provided. And I do think that the comparisons that I provided are good comparables to the properties that were appealed, and being in the mid-range of those is what I feel should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gates?
So to summarize this property and remaining properties, they are social housing, they don't operate at a profit, and those specific risk factors need to be taken into consideration. I would suggest as a reconciliation with the direct comparison approach to look at comps that are on the lowest end of the range, because that would be the most accurate reflection of how you could take the risk into account for this type of property. Whereas kind of simply going in the middle is a little bit arbitrary. So that would wrap up my thoughts on these three properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we are done with your presentations today, Ms. Gates.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always see you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Have a good one.
Just, Mr. Arnell and Mr. Thompson, I think after we hear Mr. Benoit's maybe his first or second presentation, we'll take a short break.
Sure.
Just let a minute here and I'll. Mr. Benoit, are you there? Oh, there you are. Right, is your mic working again?
Here we
Perfect. All right, I'm just gonna affirm you here. Can I get you to state your full name? Sorry, you're muted again.
I apologize. Don't do this every day.
No worries. Can you state your full name?
Daryl Benoit.
Perfect. And do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Benoit.
Hello.
We're going to proceed to the first property, which is 888 Henderson Highway, and we will start with Ms. Kilborn.
Okay. Okay, so it's 888 Henderson Highway. The roll number is 020214144000. The property is located in the Kildonan Drive neighborhood. It is a one-story single-family dwelling with an effective age of 1957. It is 1,132 square feet with a finished basement in below average condition, one full bath and one half bath, air conditioning, and a detached garage. The lot size is 5,365 square foot. There is a bus, traffic, corner, and commercial influence. And the comparable properties are 752 Henderson Highway, 468 Henderson Highway, 121 Rowendale Crescent, and 97 Mossdale Avenue. They are all one-story single-family dwellings built between 1929 to 1958. The square footages range from 816 to 1,205 square feet. They all have finished basements. 468 Henderson and 121 Rowendale have 2 bathrooms, and 752 Henderson and 97 Mossdale have 1. They all have air conditioning except for 68 Henderson does not. They all have detached garages, and the lot sizes range from 5,440 to 6,572 square feet. The comparables on Henderson have the bus, traffic, and commercial influences. So I picked comparables 1 and 2 because they're both on Henderson and they have similar influences. They both are a little smaller than the subject property. So that's why I also chose 121 Rowendale and 97 Mossdale. They're on less busy streets, but closer in size, and they both are dated. I took into account that there's some basement water issues that was discussed, and I overrode or I made a recommendation to lower the value to 305, which is $269.43 a square foot. Based on that, and I feel that this value, as it's at the low end of the sales, should be maintained.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Benoit, are you prepared to accept the assessor's recommendation of 305,000?
I appreciate it, but no.
All right, we'll proceed. Do you have questions for the assessor to what she has just presented?
Yeah, I only asked if she inspected the property.
I did not inspect it.
Okay.
I was sent pictures from you, but no, I didn't do an inspection.
Okay.
All
That's
right,
all.
thank you. Mr. Arnell, did you have any questions?
No, actually, my question was answered.
All right,
You recommended 305, in the notes here, it says due to market value change, but you also mentioned the water in the basement, is it both? or-
Yes.
Is it the water in the basement or is it?
Oh, it's for the water in the basement, and just that it should be on the lower end based on that reason, and that the other sales should be higher based on their condition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
just some clarification, Ms. Kilbourne, your comparables are all in better condition than this property?
Well, I wouldn't say in better, maybe the basement in better condition, not necessarily the whole house. There was an inspection done previously. It wasn't done by me, but the notes say that the main floor is in average shape, that the kitchen has been done at some point, maybe prior to his possession, but I don't know exactly when, but that the rest of the house would be considered in average shape. So just that the basement had some water issues. I mean, the basement was finished, and done recently or more recently, I think. I don't know exactly when, but that the damage caused by the water has made it in below average condition, which is what I now have on record, is that the basement is in below average condition.
Okay.
But I would say the main floor area would be similar to all these comparables. I picked ones that were dated and had no major upgrades or renovations.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Benoit, if you would like to proceed with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Because I have 5 properties on the docket here, one of them's resolved, but there's 4. Just if you could please give me 1 second to put this in context. These are the properties of my wife and I. We've been landlords since 1997. Talbot was the first property that we bought. So we're very hands-on. We've managed them for like 27 years, and we've been successful because we manage them hands-on and pay attention to details. So we try and buy them right when we buy them. Oh, this is an accumulation over 27 years. It didn't happen overnight. So we try and buy right. We watch, we put equity into them on purchase. We try and get the best financing through the holding period. We watch the taxes, we watch the insurance, we try and maintain them. And importantly, we're pretty vigilant about tenants. And currently we have great relationships with the tenants that we do have. So it's, we are kind of like, I think representative of part of the Canadian housing scene, whereby if there's 5 million rental units in Canada, the mom and pop ones are like 1 million or so, 20% of them. So it's an important role that we have, and we do it out of self-interest. But I'm just trying to convey that we are hands-on. So all of these things, like We have 5 in appeal today, but there were 4 that we didn't appeal in this cycle. So we don't just blanket appeal everything. We do review and we can give consideration to, I guess, fairness and the individual case of each property. So having said that, Henderson, like exactly 2 years ago, there were 2 assessors that came to the house. So I was happy about that. Anytime I can get assessors to the house, that's so important. There's one other thing I'll say is that I I am a commercial fee appraiser. I've been on my own for 22 years, and I used to be in Amanda's shoes for almost 15 years as an assessor with the city. So I say that because when I say to you that rental properties are a different bird than perhaps owner occupancy, single family dwellings in the marketplace that trade. I guess I have a little bit of background on it. Now, pardon me if I'm bouncing around here a bit, but getting to Henderson, I was glad that the 2 assessors came by, because that's what I was getting at, is that the importance of people seeing the difference of a rental. So as good as you keep them, there's always things, wear and tear. And the assessors, the last time around, we were able to do an agreement of $260,000. And that was mainly rooted in the, sorry, I'm getting some feedback here, but mainly rooted in the basement. A couple of years ago, exactly, we had the sewer break off in the middle of Roberta. We're at a corner, so we had sewer backup in the basement, and it did have an older style of rec room, and we ended up being uninsured, and we had to cut 2 feet out, as you're probably familiar with, 2 feet out of the walls all around the perimeter of the place. And we did that at our cost and remedied it, but basically we got flooded again, just by seepage through the walls, through different circumstance. So I sent photos. It's not resolved yet. So I guess you could say that's a monkey on the back of the property. Now, the other thing is that it's a rental and there are upgrades, but some of the frustrations of being a landlord is you have a new kitchen, and in this case, we have an agency that, you know, they just do funny things, and that's like putting tape that damages the surface of kitchen cabinets, and there's no end to it, but you know it when you see it, I guess, and that's what I'm coming back around to. So the 305 recommendation on Henderson, we're not prepared to accept that, and I have put out in my brief there's some comparisons. I think there's photos, and I'm suggesting 270 would be appropriate for us in light of the fact that it's a rental. And yes, there are high and low values. I think Amanda has attempted to get Henderson Highway, the influences of traffic, etc. So that's good, but there's still a gap there, and we meet up with the city every couple of years, and I like to think we have a good relationship. We tend to settle these things out most times. I think it's important that the 2 assessors being at this property 2 years ago is meaningful. Amanda hasn't been there. I have been there. I've done an inspection. So last I heard, the burden of proof is on the city in these matters. So I would kind of default over to the eyeballs of the previous 2 assessors 2 years ago as kind of like a trend towards the value. Oh, the other thing that I'll refer to, one, because this will apply to my other properties, is we are in a time frame like from April the 1st, 21 to the reference year of 23, where interest rates doubled and a half, right? So And then Canadian housing sales, they dropped from 60,000 a month to like 35,000 a month. So the impact of doubling and a half interest rates had a big impact on activity. And so yes, there's parts of the market that don't get hit by it, like the upper end, the people that have perhaps are more flush and always in the market. But I would suggest that the properties that have deferred maintenance or marginal locations and such, they're gonna fall to the wayside pretty quick as far as demand goes in a higher interest rate environment. So just to kind of steamroll the trajectory of values, up from reassessment to reassessment on all properties. I'm not sure that that's fair. And that's why we're here, I guess, site specific. I think there's some room for calm from the 260 of the CERT at the last cycle to my number of 270 this time around. Marginal increase, but not really galloping, I guess you could say. So that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Kilborn, do you have questions?
Yeah, how much do you charge per month for rent for this property?
Well, that's not a problem telling you that, but do you guys value single family dwellings by the income approach?
I'm just wondering. I just asked a question.
Is it relevant? I'm asking the chair.
Yes, I'm gonna say it's relevant because the assessor is asking.
2,500.
I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell?
No questions.
Mr. Robson?
At the time that the previous two assessors came, and you came to the agreement of 260, was the basement in need of renovation at that point?
I can't remember if we were in the middle of it or they definitely got the message. They saw the damage and the walls may have been cut open at that time, but I'm sorry, sir. I can't remember what the timing was of it. It might have been even re-damaged at that time. But I guess that's a question I could have asked Amanda if she read the notes from the previous guys or not. But yeah, the thing is that if you went to buy that house today and you walked into the basement, you would see water staining on the walls and I sent the photos, and it would be a concern. It would as a buyer.
I see the photos. Have you had a quote done of what it'll cost to replace or fix?
You know what? 3 months before the backup, the bylaw changed for the city. It said, if the sewer breaks in the middle of the street, we'll fix it, unless it's a rental. So I paid $11,000 to cut into the middle of Roberta, and then I think it was another 20. Let's call it 20,000, I guess, to have some guys from my insurance company come and fix it. So they came and fixed it. I paid that. And no, I haven't had any quotes because I'm not really in the mood to deal with it right now.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Benoit, can you just tell me when was the first time your sewer backed up?
It would have been, it would be 3 months after the date that bylaw changed, certainly for whatever bylaw number that is, 3 months after that, but in the proximity of 2 years ago, the time of the last reassessment.
Okay.
Because the CERT was done exactly 2 years ago,
Okay.
August or September.
Okay, so 2022.
Yeah,
And
it might have been March.
Okay, and now you're saying it flooded again, which is the current damage we're seeing in your photos?
Yes. Yeah, it was fixed. it was fixed. I was happy that it was repaired, and then we had seepage come from the other end of the house and make its way. And
So the photos you submitted is the current damage in the home.
yeah, I took those the other day.
Okay, and when did that happen? When it flooded again?
I would say in the springtime.
And did you state you're unable to claim again on your insurance?
It's not a consideration.
Right?
Yeah.
And is this home currently rented?
Yes.
Okay. I thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Benoit, we're just going to take a short recess at this time.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'd like to bring this hearing back to order, and we are moving on to our next property, which is 815 Talbot Avenue.
Okay,
This form, whenever you are ready.
sure. Okay, it's 815 Talbot Avenue. The roll number is 140920500000. The property is located in the East Elmwood neighborhood. It's a 1.5-story single-family dwelling built in 1949. It's 728 square feet with a finished basement and 1 full bathroom. The lot size is 3,708 square feet. There's a bus and traffic influence. The comparable properties are 808 Manhattan Avenue, 823 Manhattan Avenue, 938 Talbot Avenue, and 811 Beach Avenue. They are all 1.5-story single-family dwellings built between 1949 and 1951. The square footages range from 900 to 917 square feet. 823 Manhattan and 938 Talbot have finished basements. And 808 Manhattan and 811 Beach do not. 808 Manhattan and 938 Talbot have 2 bathrooms, and 823 Manhattan and 811 Beach have 1. 808 Manhattan has a detached garage. The lot sizes range from 4,169 square feet to 4,442 square feet. There is a bus and traffic influence for 938 Talbot. The comparable properties, I would say, have more upgrades, more updated kitchens, and maybe some flooring. So they're a little bit in more updated shape than the subject property. So I made an adjustment, and I recommended lowering the value to 195 to be at the very low end of the comparables. And I believe that this value should be maintained.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Benoit, did you have questions to the assessor?
Hi.
Do you have
Can you-
questions for the assessor?
Just asking if she inspected it for the record.
I didn't inspect. I got pictures sent to me.
That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell,
No questions.
thank you. Mr. Robson.
No questions at this time.
Ms. Gilmore, I'm just wondering why you did not include photos for the panel.
Why I did not?
Yes.
I didn't think about including pictures. I don't know why I didn't.
Okay. And you have pictures of which parts of the house?
I just got pictures of the kitchen, and I believe the basement, 1 picture in the basement.
Okay.
So based on the kitchen is dated, so I thought that lowering the value to the low end to take into account that it's more dated than the subject properties or the comparable properties.
Okay. Can you elaborate on dated?
The cupboards just look really old and they're kind of in rough shape. The flooring looks okay, but I can't really tell from here, but it's mostly the cupboards and the counter looks old.
Okay. sorry, are the cupboards plywood? Is the countertop floor-mat or?
It's just like your average countertop, yeah, that, and the cupboards just look wood painted. I don't know exactly what type of wood, but they're painted white.
Okay, and the comparables that you used, assuming then you have descriptions of their kitchens?
Yeah, the comparables have kitchens that are, I mean, not anything crazy. They've probably been updated at some point. I tried to find dated comparables, 1.5 story dated, and they mostly would have some type of, maybe newer countertops, some of them with flooring. So I just kind of thought that since they had some type of kitchen update, nothing like brand new or no granite type countertops, but that they should be a little bit, or that the subject should be lower than them based on the fact that they're not as updated.
Alright.
But they're not like major, like the whole houses aren't totally renovated. It's just more of more updated than what I feel that the subject property would be.
All right, and the basement is also,
Dated.
is there damage?
I only saw one picture, so I don't know. Maybe the homeowner could say that. I haven't. I was just mainly lowering it based on the fact that the main floor looked and the kitchen was dated.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Benoit, are you willing to accept the assessor's recommendation to lower the value to 195,000?
Well, I appreciate the sentiment, but no, unfortunately.
All right, thank you. And that is all my questions, Mr. Kilborn. If you would like to proceed, Mr. Benoit, with your presentation.
Sure. So I was kind of hoping, like, I have an outstanding municipal board on this property where I'm asking 170,000. And this go around, I'm asking a reduction to 180,000. So I was kind of hoping that I would get an assessor out this time and they would maybe deal on the outstanding municipal board and this one at the same time, but that didn't happen. So this is the property that we first bought in 1997. I heard the comment, one photo of the basement. I didn't hear the word boiler though. So that is a picture of the boiler, which is original. And when I went down there the other day to take that picture, I had a peek at the rec room. That is absolutely original from when we bought it in 1997. And it's, I wouldn't call it particularly charming, but I'm going to just come back around on rental and deferred maintenance as best, landlords try. Things happen, and it seems these days that observable deferred maintenance comes in clumps of $5,000 and $10,000 lumps, so to speak. So that's kind of, it doesn't take you long looking at this Talbot property to get, slightly away from what you might see as typical or for better condition properties. So one thing I'd like to clear up is that I'm not going to argue with it because it's a bit of a misnomer to be called a 1.5 story house. Yeah, it has, you can see the lower slope on the ceiling. It has a finished upper area with, you could call it proper stairs, but it's not like the other styles of 1.5 story houses that you see in the neighborhood. And plus there's no heat to it. And that's been determined over time from different assessors. So it's just a comment. It's not included, I think, in your floor area of 700 and change, I guess. If you were assessing it as heated 900 square feet or so, then I would, I guess, have a problem with that, but it isn't heated. So my outlook on this property is rooted in the boiler, and I haven't had a specific quote on that one, but we have another similar house on Hespeler, and a guy told me it would be $10,000, and that was without removing the existing boiler, like to replace it with a modern boiler. So the boiler is not only old, but it inhibits air conditioning to the house. So some people don't like that. And then the kitchen, pick a number for what it is, the original built-in place cabinetry that's there, plywood. So pick a number as to what that would cost to fix. So again, I guess I just it would be nice if we could get, you know, matching eyeballs on these properties as in an inspection, but that's not the way things work. So here I am asking for you to reduce it to 180,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kilborn, any questions?
So this property is being rented out right now?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the rent for this property?
So in 1997, I was hoping I could get I studied the market. I thought I could get 550, and I did. And so right now, as of January the 1st, we're getting $1,320. And the previous 11 years, I had it at $1,120. So we went from 550 to now of 1,320. So I don't think that's really living high on the hog. It's like a 3% annual increase over 27 years. So I was just kind of curious about that the other day. And again, that's a tenant that we have a good relationship with. So, but yeah, I kept the rent the same for 11 years. Kind of like Fulford, but 1320. They pay
Okay.
utility. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnett?
No, I don't have any questions.
Mr. Robson?
You showed a picture of the boiler, sorry, I might have missed it, but did you say there's issues with the boiler or it's just old?
No, it's just ancient. It
Okay.
does have it has the burner that used to be maintained by Manitoba Hydro. And I got a letter a number of years ago saying they were discontinuing it. And so it's been handed, the tenant has been looking after the burner on it. I don't know if you're familiar with these things, but that's how they used to do it.
I'm not familiar, but I'll say that.
Yeah, I can make the boiler obsolete if the burner is unrepairable at some point. So.
And did you discuss the kitchen and the boiler with the assessment department?
I sent the photos.
Just the photos, no conversation followed that?
I can't remember if we talked specifically about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Benoit, did you specifically request to have an inspection this year?
I
Property?
absolutely did. On to Amanda, I asked for on all of them. Yes.
We
Yes.
did talk about inspections, and then I did ask to do one too. We didn't get a time set up, and then I asked for pictures because it was kind of getting closer to the date, and it just didn't seem like it was, I don't know, we just never got it picked a date. So then I got pictures and then just took it from there. But we both actually asked for inspections, and then it just didn't end up happening.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. So we will move on to 38 Smithfield.
Okay. Okay, 38 Smithfield. The roll number is 110000490000. Property is located in the Seven Oaks neighborhood. It's a one-story single-family dwelling built in 1915. It's 840 square feet with a finished basement, one full bathroom, and air conditioning. The lot size is 6,025 square feet. The comparables are 182 St. Anthony Avenue, 123 Atlantic Avenue, 146 Seven Oaks Avenue, and 190 Jefferson Avenue. They're all two-story single-family dwellings built between 1913 and 1932. or with the effective age of 1913 to 1932. The square footages range from 816 square feet to 922 square feet. 182 St. Anthony and 146 Seven Oaks have a finished basement, and 123 Atlantic and 190 Jefferson do not. They all have one full bathroom, and 123 Atlantic, 146 Seven Oaks, and 190 Jefferson have detached garages. The lot sizes range from 3,052 to 4,519 square feet. There's a commercial and corner influence for 190 Jefferson. And the time adjusted price for all these comparables range from 200,900 to 218,700. I made a recommendation to lower the 2025 value down to the low end of the comps at 202. And I believe that this value should be maintained.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Benoit, did you have questions of the assessor?
No, I don't.
All right, Mr. Arnell?
I just noticed that the property is 6,000 square feet. The rest are pretty much half of that, right?
It has the largest lot of all the comparables.
Okay. Would we have any idea what land goes for, what a lot goes for in that area? Like, no
I
house?
didn't look at lot sales for this area, no.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions at this time.
And just to clarify, Ms. Kilburn, you did not inspect this property,
No,
right?
no, sorry, no, I did not.
All right, and so your assessment reduction then is based on basically Mr. Benoit's photos, I'm going to say, discussions with him?
Well, we discussed, but there was an inspection done recently, like within the last 2 years. So I looked at the notes on that, and based on that, so the house is in average shape. The kitchen has a few newer cabinets based on the previous inspection. The bathroom is in average shape, and the basement would be considered in lower condition. So we have it in below average condition for the basement. So I just used those notes based on the previous inspection. I didn't have pictures of it, no.
Okay, sorry, I didn't quite hear you, so you have no pictures, but you just.
I have no pictures from the previous inspection, but I do have the notes from the previous inspection. So I just, based on that, the house is in average condition. The kitchen is in average shape with a few newer cabinets, and the bathroom is considered in average condition. So based on that, and then the basement is below average, which we have on file already. So based on the notes from the previous inspection from 2 years ago, I just used that, and I did feel that I should bring him down a little bit to 202 to be at the lower end.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, Mr. Kilburn, I can't remember now if I've asked you, but you're not accepting the 202.
Oh, yeah, no, but we're at this point, we're really splitting hairs. I do appreciate the 202. No is the short answer with an explanation, I think.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. All right, if you would like to proceed with your
Yeah, sure, thanks. So there was someone out 2 years ago, and we did do a cert at 185. So you're gonna think I'm making this up because every property has some kind of warts on it or whatever. But in this case, and like for example, the basement is you could call it a full basement on half the basement. So the square footage isn't there, but if you're 6 feet tall, like you have to watch your head. So this is something that would have been it's not just a typical 840 square foot full basement. That's one thing. the sir that commented about the land value, that yeah, you certainly are onto something. That's 6,000 square feet, and that side of Smithfield, those the length of those lots is 172 feet, but the width in this particular lot is not like dividable into two, so it shows big, but there's a lot of depth that is you know, like basically pasture heading out to the back lane. Now, what's land value worth? Well, just in the last little while, a couple doors down, a wider lot like that could be subdivided, which it was 50 feet by 172. It sold twice quickly from the estate, and then it sold to the developer. And don't quote me, but it was in the twos to a developer, like 220 or 250, something like that. And if you drive by there today, there's two new houses being built, like the typical infill 2 stories. So in that case, yeah, you know, it's a great location for subdividing lots, and someone jumped on that. But our lot, I don't have it in front of me. I think it's 34 feet wide. But that depth, you know, it's we've never taken advantage of it with you know, building a big garage, etc. It's just surface parking right at the lane, and then a whole yard full of lawn. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just explaining to you the context of the 6,000 square feet of land. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't want to repeat myself here, but my value that I'm looking for is 180. Or pardon me, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. The cert was at 185. I'm suggesting 190 this go around, and you're at 202. So I guess I would just leave it to your consideration what you do. So appreciate it.
I thank you. And Ms. Kilgore, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. And Mr. Arnell?
No questions.
I also have no questions.
And I also have no questions. I thank you, Mr. Benoit. So we will proceed to your last property, which is 122 Pulford.
Okay, 122 Pulford Street. The roll number is 120320790000. The property is located in the River Osborne neighborhood. It's 2-story single family dwelling with an effective year built of 1921. It's 1,320 square feet with an unfinished basement, 2 baths, 1 full, 1 half, and a central air conditioning. The lot size is 3,307 square feet. There's a corner and commercial influence. The comparable properties are 637 Warsaw Avenue, 713 Fleet Avenue, 808 Mulvey Avenue, and 118 Lewis Street. 118 Lewis is a 1 3/4 story, and the rest are 2 stories, with an effective year built between 1912 and 1926. The square footages range from 1,196 to 1,402 square feet. 713 Fleet has a finished basement, and the rest of the comparables have an unfinished basement. 637 Warsaw has 2 bathrooms, and the rest have 1. 713 Fleet and 808 Mulvey have detached garages, and the lot sizes range from 2,308 square feet to 3,010 square feet. There's a backlane influence for 637 Warsaw, and there's a traffic and school influence for 713 Fleet Avenue. There's a commercial influence for 118 Lewis Street. So I picked 3 comparables. Comparables 1, 2, and 3 are 2-story, and comparable 4 is a 1 3/4 story because it's the only sale that I could find in the specific neighborhood of the subject. They're both close and they're both similar neighborhoods, but I just wanted to have one in the specific neighborhood because there was no 2 stories in his specific neighborhood that were of comparable size to him. They were all significantly larger, so I didn't feel like I should choose those comparables. So I picked sales that were relatively dated, no major upgrades, no major work done to them. And the values, the time adjusted prices range from 264, 700 to 311, 500. And I made a recommendation to lower his value to 270 to be at the low end of the sales based on these comparables.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Benoit, would you be accepting the assessor's recommendation of $270,000?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And do you have questions for the assessor on this property?
You're gonna ask it, so I may as well ask, did you inspect the property?
No.
Okay. Okay,
Is that all your questions, Mr. Benoit?
oh yeah, sorry, that's it, yes.
That's fine, thank you. And Mr. Arnell?
So this subject was sold in 15 for 240?
Yes.
Okay, nice one. Yeah, okay, thank you. That's it.
Thanks.
Mr. Wilson?
I noticed that none of the comparables have central air. In your model, what value do you put on central air that the subject property has?
I don't know the specific value. I would say roughly in this area, maybe 3,000 to 5,000. That's just a guess.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Gilbert, I just have one question for you. This subject property has commercial adjacent. Do
Yeah.
you know what that is?
It's apartments.
It's apartments.
Yeah.
Do you know when this property was last inspected?
I don't know. There's pictures on MLS that I saw from the 2015 sale, so I can see what it looked like based on that. I don't know if there was an inspection, so let me just double check. No, we've never done an inspection.
All right, I thank you.
Thank you.
That's all my questions. Mr. Benoit? If you could,
Yes.
if you could proceed with your property, please.
Yeah, so I'm asking for a reduction to 240. Yeah, we bought it in 2015 for 240. It was on the market for 52 days. We own another place on the street, and I was going by there one day and I saw the owner knowing that it was coming on the market, and I asked him how much he was asking for it as it just came on in 15, and he was asking 340. So it came on at 329.9, and then we got it for 240. Now, my point is that I'm in the business, and this is a tricky, I guess, location to find exact comps and to get a finger on it. I guess we'll probably cover this, but so I have comparables in my brief. There's no significant updates. We bought it with the roof. It'll say in the listing when the roof was done. We haven't touched the roof, and we're just thankful that it's hanging in there, but it's a fully painted exterior of cedar shakes. And again, it's this thing about photos don't always reveal condition, and on a building that's 120 years old, like you can, like a fatigue can set in just when you're standing there looking at it, with the things in these $5,000 and $10,000 clumps of repairs. Like the windows aren't upgraded. I could go on, but I'm not gonna. I just think that there's a range of value here for it to come down closer to what I want. We did rent it in 15 for $14.95 to some nice people, and in 17 I got wind. Well, they told me they were looking at moving, and so I dropped it to $14.50. to entice them to stay and in the circumstance. So that's what I'm charging now since 2017. So that's 7 years later. And these old houses, they really do just sit there and break, right? So between the other properties that we have, we're always just balancing funds and fixing things as they come between them. So you kind of have to hang on to your hat in this business. But getting back to my brief, there is that, hang on, please. I guess this is the only time I'm referring to my brief out of them. There was or is the 116 Bryce Street, which I would suggest is in a lot better condition than ours, and significantly more square footage. Ours is 2,292 square feet. So that would be an interesting one to see. That's, just a few streets over from Pulford. But if you're going to look at one of my comps, that would be one of them. So yeah, I feel like I'm missing something. There was a garage when we bought it, but to make efficiency of the back lane and the access in, like it's kind of crazy. Someone built a garage that if the neighbor was parked a certain way, you couldn't get into it. So we tore it down, and it was an old thing anyways. But so there's no garages or decks. And yeah, thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Kilborn, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell?
Not at this time. Thanks.
Mr. Robson?
I might have missed it, but what do you believe the value of the house to be?
Yeah, I'm asking for 240.
Thank you, no further questions.
So, Mr. Benoit, you have not made any significant upgrades to this property since its purchase in 2015. Is that what you're telling us?
Okay, well, what I'll tell you is that all four corners of the house had towering trees that I had to deal with at like $2,500 a pop, removal and trimming to keep them tamed. I had to knock down there's two big brick chimneys on the house. I had to knock one of them down, like to the roof line, because it was gonna tip over. So there's that. I did the backyard garage removal, did some chain link fencing. The tenants along the way have always asked to paint, because the colors you see in the listing there were kind of psychedelic, and I guess it wore on them over the years. They've basically returned the house to white. The furnace haven't touched, the central air haven't touched. The kitchen is, the kitchen. Put a new fridge. Put one window on a lane, the one that faces the lane, one window, because it was just too bad. So yeah, nothing's,
Okay, and this property is currently rented?
yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you. I have no further questions. We appreciate you coming today, Mr. Benoit, and giving us your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you to you all.
Thank you.
Ms. Kilburn, thank you for your time this
Thank
afternoon.
you.
And all the items on the docket have been heard, and this hearing is adjourned.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.